Let's call our meeting to order. This is a work session of the Mayor and Borough Council of the Borough of Seaside Park, County, Ocean State of New Jersey, held on Thursday, March 19th, 2026, advertised for 7 p.m. Pursuant to the provisions of New Jersey's Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting was properly provided by transmitting the notice of the meeting for publication in the Asbury Park Press and the Ocean Star on January 2nd, 2026. Notice of the hybrid meeting was properly provided also by posting the notice on the Seaside Park Borough website on March 17th, 2026. Notice of the meeting of the governing body also has been posted in the corridor of the municipal building and in the office of the municipal clerk. Roll call.
Councilmember Condos?
Here.
Councilmember Connor?
Here.
Councilmember Kraft?
Here.
Councilmember Rotunda?
Here.
Councilmember Toth?
Here.
Council President Wilk?
Here.
Mayor Peterson?
Here.
Thank you.
We have this evening a proclamation to be presented. However, I do not see the representative from the Upper Shores Library here, and I know she had indicated she has a difficult time on Thursday evenings and might not. That's Miss Sloan Bryce. I don't see her, so I will temporarily put that aside and we'll handle that at the appropriate moment during the regular meeting, and if she arrives, we will be able to do so as well as we join with all other participating municipalities in recognizing in Seaside Park as well as throughout the state and country National Library Week. The first item on the agenda is an informational session, additional discussion of an addendum to the annexation impact study that had previously been the subject matter of prior meetings, and that had been produced, disseminated, and posted. The addendum has been created by the government strategy group, whose representatives are here, and the governing body had expressed questions and comments that focused upon one portion of the study, and that entailed, unfortunately, a medical situation involving the individual with the finance department and the other individuals in the finance department, thereby leading to questions posed by the governing body and indeed by the public. That being said, I will turn the floor over to the financial people. We welcome Ken here, as well as an entire team focused in particular on financial aspects of the study itself. And we also have with us, along with our attorney, we have special counsel and Ms. Cipriani. So, welcome to all, and perhaps I'll turn the floor over to Ken.
I'll use the microphone. I'm Ken Roberts. I'm with Government Strategy Group. So I want to deal with this issue straight ahead. There was an error in the report. One of the numbers was counted twice, which caused an artificial increase in the projected savings in overall property taxes. For that, I take ownership and responsibility for it. I apologize to the mayor and council, and more importantly to all of you, because that's not the standard quality of our work. It's unfortunate how it happened. I can explain to you in short detail how it occurred, but nonetheless it happened. But as a result of the March 5th public hearing, there was confusion in the report as to the way and manner in which the property tax information was presented. It was not clear, and that's why I had suggested to the mayor that we will issue an addendum report to distill and crystallize that, and that's what we did. And that report was compiled by one of our finance experts on our team, who I'll introduce. Hello? There it is. I'm back. So we did prepare that report, but so I just want to give you a little context of our team who put this report together, the entire study. Our director, project manager, Sharon Roundtree. Sharon has been a manager and administrator in a number of communities across the state, and is probably in the top tier, top echelon of municipal management. We have Ted Lamacella. Ted is the tax assessor. Ted is the tax assessor in a major community in Monmouth County. And in addition, he's a certified real estate appraiser and does appraisal work for municipalities throughout the state. And he's admitted as an expert in the state tax court. We have Gary Abzarni. Gary is our municipal utility expert. He knows infrastructure, water, sewer, etc. And he's the one who contributed to that part of the report. A couple of people who are not here, Vince Dana. Vince handled public works. Vince is not only a certified public works director, he's also a licensed civil engineer. So we've got extra bang for our buck with him. And then we had Doug Marvin. Doug is a retired administrator, and I've worked with him in the past. He's successfully admitted into Superior Court as an expert witness in litigation involving establishing permits and fee revenue schedules. And especially with what we're doing with beach badges and some of the other fees, we brought him in to take care of that. And then on the police side, we had retired Chief Shannon Torres. Shannon was a chief up in Keyport. She retired and has been doing consulting work for us and others. And she served on the executive board of the Chiefs Association, and she's now joined and was recruited by the Department of Homeland Security. So that's the type of people that we had working on this report. And as we discussed with the mayor and council on March 5th, that we were going to take another look and come up with a better message for articulating the tax increase, we brought in our senior finance expert, John Gross. John's been a municipal manager, administrator, elected official in a number of communities, and is our top expert in this field. So we brought him in. So I asked John to just take a quick walk through how we put together the addendum report.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to be here this evening to the governing body and to the public. When Ken asked me to look over the report, which is about a 200-page report, and boil it down to an addendum to make it easier, we took a look at the report. And the report basically is two components. The first component is a description of management, of the management needs and requirements with the annexation, to try to project out really what this means on a day-to-day nuts and bolts basis to the municipality, how it runs. And from that, estimate what the potential increased costs that would come from that. The second half of the report, which is probably a third of the report, is going through the machinations of the calculations and the factors that impact those calculations in terms of the assessed values and the difference in the way the two different towns assess their properties, as well as how it impacts the differences of education and costs with regional school districts. So when I looked at that, I thought about it a long time, and working with the team, we decided that we would try to break this down. The report based into three different charts that should be relatively easy to understand, and we're certainly here to go through any questions you have about that this evening. The first chart is, within the report, focuses on calculating all the different tax entities, what their actual, what was it actually in 2025, what it would be projected with 2026 without annexation, and what it would be with 2026 with annexation. And basically, it looks like a blown-up tax bill that you would get. And so if you go through that process, and when we go through that process, you'll see that it's almost all just calculations of known facts, with the exception of what the increased costs will be to the municipality because of annexation. And that is what I spoke about, as the first 2/3 of the report deals with projecting that. Nobody knows the answer to what that really is going to be. The report does an analysis that comes up, I think, with a reasonable expectation of what the costs could be. Ultimately, knowing governing bodies as I do, governing bodies are going to look for ways not to spend that money. And frankly, as a manager, I would expect that there'll be ways to find not to spend the monies that were projected in the report. But the report is a conservative look at how to do this, and I think it's fair to reflect that in these calculations. The second chart is strictly taking that and turning that into tax rates, and again, that's probably, you'll see some of that on your tax bill. They're very similar. There's also other documents that you can find online about that breaks down your taxes and municipal tax rates for all the different entities that tax you. And then the third one was taking a look at a taxpayer with a typical house assessed at a value. We picked the number of 600,000 to make it easy math of what your taxes would have been in 25, what your projected taxes would be in 26 without annexation, and what it would be in 26 with annexation. And, you know, the bottom line is that came down to that a typical $600,000 house, based on the calculations and our estimates of what the increased cost would be, ends up at about an 8.02% savings for that property owner, which is a little less than $900. So this is the process that we went through in doing these calculations, getting back to Ken's concerns about how we did. We actually went through and used numerous methodologies to calculate them, to make sure that we were cross-checking our numbers to make sure that everything made sense. And I have high confidence in this report, that it reflects the actual calculations that are necessary for this analysis, and take into account the estimated increased cost that the report identifies as well. So, thank you.
One of the issues and areas that I would like to address is, you made a mistake in the report. How can we trust the rest of the report? I just want to address that with you. So if you have the addendum on page 4, this is the first chart John referred to, it says total taxes to be collected. And there's 5 components to this: the total county taxes, local municipal, local school, regional school, and the assessed value. So I'll start with the assessed value first. So each town has to publish their...
I don't think they have.
I don't know that the page 4 that you're referencing
It's
is
in
from
the
the
addendum.
addendum, but I don't know that that was outside,
Oh,
so
okay.
unless you looked at it online, that's part of it, Shirley, but it's not.
Yeah, I'm just showing him that's what we have.
Right, well, that was the one page, but it was put on the website and was put out once we received it. It's like a 5, I guess it's.
Yeah.
7 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7, thank you. So I think we have to talk through what's on that if people don't have it in their hands.
So basically, the various components were calculated using the information in the report. And key components like regional school tax, there's a big increase there. That number came from the regional school business administrator. We didn't make that up. The local school tax remains unchanged because your local school district is a sending district. They pay tuition for each student, and there's no change incrementally in the number of students because of South Seaside Park. The county taxes, we gauge a modest increase from 25 and extrapolated that into 26 and 27. So the only thing subjective there is instead of a 5% increase, maybe we should have used a 4% or 6% increase. We chose 5. Then comes the municipal portion of the tax. That's the only area where there could be really much variation. And that was derived that we calculated out the total revenues that would inure from annexation, beach badges, additional inspections from code enforcement, etc. And then the other thing was operating expenses. What additional operating expenses would be needed, and those are all detailed, very well detailed in the report. And then salaries and wages. We recommended hiring a number of people in police and DPW and even code enforcement. Now, we took the approach that we would rather be conservative and set that mark high. And as John alluded to, the mayor and council aren't going to just accept our recommendations and hire each number of employees. They're going to really scrub it to make their decision as to what they feel is absolutely essential. But for forecasting, we'd rather make those assumptions on the higher side than the lower side. So that's what we did. And then debt service. We made assumptions that there would have to be some type of compensation, possibly, to Berkeley Township in consideration for South Seaside Park portion of the debt that Berkeley Township had. And it's hard to attribute it dollar for dollar, that this dollar was spent in South Seaside, this dollar wasn't. So we took the approach, which is probably the fairest and equitable, is to base it on a percentage of assessed value. That's how we did that. But on the other hand, what we also did is we went one step further. And I know that you've brought this up on several occasions as well. We said, well, look, if South Seaside, Seaside Park has to incur and pay part of the liability, they should get credit for the offsetting assets on the balance sheet because those funds are used for what's called fixed assets. So in Berkeley Township's audit report, they list, they disclose the amount of fixed assets they have. So we took the same percentage of that and offset it against the debt. And that's how we came up with the relative portion of payment that Seaside Park may have to make, that they may have to make to Berkeley Township. And that's going to be up to the committee that goes through the negotiations, et cetera. But we then went one step further and said, well, that amount's probably about 2.6 million. We'll finance that over 10 years of bonds. And so the amount that's computed into the projected tax rate is the debt service for the first year of that bond issue. So we put that all together, and that's what comprises the difference between with annexation and without annexation. Like I said, we focused a lot of attention on the municipal portion because the school, county, and local school, we have no control over it. And so we just accepted those numbers. So that's the only areas where there can be variation. And then there's one other component that went into it, one-time costs. Because to go through the negotiations, to go through getting everything set up. There's going to be some unique one-time costs associated with annexation. And again, you know, if you want to criticize us, you criticize us because our estimate is high. But we'd rather be high than be caught off guard and so forth. So we left a lot of buffer room for the mayor and council to have flexibility in evaluating and analyzing if annexation were to go through, how they could proceed with it. So I just wanted to run through that exercise with you to share with you that, you know, all the information that we had is detailed in the report in terms of number of police officers, fringe benefit costs, etc. And those numbers all came together, as John mentioned, crystallized into the table that we presented in the addendum report. So with that, Mayor and council members, I guess we open it up to questions.
Yes, is there any points that want to be raised at this juncture by any governing body members? Any comments?
Mayor,
Yes.
just one thing, only because when we spoke about it, when we had the separate meeting, when we look at the sample home that you gave the example for, the without annexation is a current Seaside Park resident, not a current South Seaside Park resident comparison. So I think that should be made clear to everybody. It may not represent exactly the same way if you're a homeowner in South Seaside Park, correct?
Yes.
Any other comments from governing body members? Anything, Jean, you want to add, or at this juncture, or?
No, nothing at this time.
And anyone from, Ken, your group?
We're fine.
Okay, what we'll do, and as a precaution, erring on the side of caution, if that's the right verbiage in terms of numbers, we have this meeting as being a hybrid meeting whereby individuals can participate online as well, albeit there are numerous empty chairs out in the audience I see. That being said, I will open up the floor for any public comments or questions, this being an information session. Tom?
Tom Joseph, 704 South Bayview Avenue, Seaside Park. The tables you refer to in the addendum give, in the table on tax rates, it gives the percentage differences. The county stuff is all pretty much consistently minus 15.17%. And there's some other numbers for the municipal and the schools and whatnot. And then you apply it to a $600,000 home, and suddenly the 15.17% becomes 13.17%. And the school one, which is 52%, becomes 34%. Since you're talking percent change in tax rates, and then you apply those to a $600,000 home to convert them to dollars, why are all the percentage differences changing? Last time I checked, multiplying by a constant doesn't change percentages.
That's a great question. Ted, you want to answer? I mean, the simple answer is that the tax rate is based on the full rateable base, which includes commercial properties as well. What you saw in the flyer, the 13%, is just on a single home, 600,000. So you'd have to then equate, there may be some classes of property, commercial, which are higher.
Okay.
It's not a constant, so you can't extrapolate 15% equals 13%.
Yeah, I understand that. But what you're saying is that the projected tax rates are composite tax rates. They're not tax rates for a particular class of property.
Correct. There's one tax rate for every property type. It's discriminatory. You
Then
can't
the percentage change in the tax rate applied to the $600,000 home should have the same percentage change in the tax. You just contradicted what he said.
But he was talking about based on the values of swing.
The value is $600,000.
Right.
The difference is the baseline. On the chart on page 5, the baseline is the difference. It's the difference between annexation and no annexation with the baseline of the projected annexation. They're different numbers. They're not the same number. The chart on page 6 of the report is the difference with a baseline of without annexation.
All right, I understand what
Do
you're saying.
you know what I'm saying?
I understand what you're
It's just
saying, and I convinced myself there was no way in hell that 52 point whatever % made any sense. It was like you changed, in effect, you're changing the denominator in the calculation by going from, in one case, pre-annexation and the other post, and computing the % change.
It's
One
just,
is a look forward and the other one is a look
Yeah.
backward.
Okay,
That's,
so I'm gonna
that's
say
what
the
it is.
thing I've been saying privately to people all along. This is the worst written report I have ever seen. You left out all the important issues. You leave out little details like that that make it impossible to make sense of this. And all we come away with, after your wonderful little speech about the credentials of all your people, is, why are you wasting our time with this? If you can't annotate things to explain to those of us that actually read it and want to understand it, leaving out all these critical things, it just makes it hard to take any of it seriously. I'm very disappointed.
Any other comment? Yes, sir.
James Fulcomer, 356 Roberts Avenue, Seaside Park. There is one thing that is very clear. Financial experts representing Berkeley Township at the planning board meeting that led to the annexation before the courts, and the financial experts from the petitioners all agreed on one thing, that if South Seaside Park becomes part of Seaside Park, the taxes in Seaside Park for a homeowner would be less. And this impact study says the same thing. So it's very simple. If this municipal council wants to lower taxes, you vote yes. If you want to make taxes higher, vote no. Remember, years ago, when I was much younger, the decision was made, was made to say no. And as a result, the individual taxpayers of Seaside Park pay tens of thousands of dollars more over those years in taxes. Let's not repeat the same mistake. Let's create a greater Seaside Park with lower taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Greg Raymond, 38 Brighton Avenue, Seaside Park. 2 questions quickly. And I know past history is no guarantee of what your answer will be, but I assume you've done these before?
As the annexation
This type of an exercise with other towns?
Analytics, we've done it.
Yeah, the analytics. So 8% is the estimate. When you do these reports, how close do you typically get it close to right? Meaning, is the 8%, you're not guaranteeing it, but
No, exactly.
but based on your history, does the ballpark come back, yes or no?
Close.
Yes. The second question is, you mentioned negotiations and leverage that will happen after the process. Help me understand what kind of leverage anyone has in that negotiation once the deal's already been, you've signed to buy something and do something. How does anybody, and I don't mean it in a sarcastic way, how does our town have any leverage on the debt that we take on, or what we do or don't do after that?
if I may?
Sure.
Yeah, so, I mean, you're right. In one sense, once you've taken it, you've taken it. But then the question really becomes, what is that additional cost, right? What is the debt? What is the portion of the debt? What are the fixed assets? Obviously, there's a reduction in some of the expenses of Berkeley Township. So all of those things come in. So in terms of the negotiation, there are two aspects, or there are a number of aspects. So one reason that
we have some leverage, and that Berkeley has some leverage in the sense that we both have an incentive to come to an agreement, is that if we don't come to an agreement ourselves in 60 days, then it goes to the court. The court appoints 3 people that we have no control over what those people are. We can submit whatever our calculations have been, whatever our reasons for them may be, but those 3 people appointed by the court are going to make the decision. So the fact of maintaining some level of control gives both municipalities a reason to try and come to an agreement, because at least we kind of know what each other's position is. Nobody knows exactly what the court, and in this case, the people are going to do. So there are all of these different factors that come in terms of what the leverage is, and we'll have to go through that analysis. Obviously, we're going to start from different perspectives as to how that would be done. And interestingly, the cases that are out there, right, there's the statute that says these are things to be considered, but the cases that are out there, there are not a lot, if any, that really talk about how that valuation is done, what gets to be considered and what doesn't. And so that lack of certainty, other than the statutory language, is something that, again, provides both sides with some wiggle room. There are going to be things, and I don't want to,
No, I wouldn't even.
typically when you go into negotiation, you don't give your legs away. But, there are going to be different things that are more important to Berkeley, and there's going to be things that are more important to us, and we'll see where that goes, should it get to that point.
Yeah, and to this gentleman's point, if you're voting yes, then it's so important that there are people sitting here that are masters at negotiation with business acumen, because that's what it's going to become. And so that's it. Thank you so much.
Just to go back to your numbers, the numbers will be close, but they're based on a certain set of assumptions.
I understand.
And so those assumptions, like how much debt is taken on or what other decisions the municipality decides to make, could change those numbers. It's very, very nuanced, and there's a multitude of factors that came into getting that number.
Right, but I was in consulting for 40 years, and when you retain a client, you sit in front of the client and you say, from past experience, here's generally what you should expect. Otherwise, I shouldn't be hired again.
Yep.
Things can happen out of your control, but overall, the framework of what you set up, we should be seeing an 8% without surprises.
I can tell you, as a municipal manager now for 40 years, I've read a lot of reports. I've written numerous reports. As a manager, I'm always looking to spend less than whatever's in the report. And I think that that's always the focus. Now, obviously, you don't know what you don't know. But I think the estimates in here are top-end estimates as far as personnel and things of that nature. So as a manager, I think your governing body is going to be looking to spend less, not more, which means if that's true, if that happens, then these numbers look better, not worse.
Yeah, it sounds like you're committing them to 11 or 12%. Thank you.
I didn't hear that. Oh, okay, you go.
Yes, Edie?
It was to 11 to battery.
Edie Quinn, 48 11th Avenue. I have one question, well, I have 2 questions. First of all, Government Strategies Group, how many annexation reports has your firm done?
This is our first.
Okay. My next question has to do with when you were talking about debt service.
Yes.
And debt service would be the amount of money that Seaside Park would have to pay, South Seaside Park's debt service to Berkeley, but it's offset by assets, a percentage of assets. You mentioned 2.6 million. What does that number mean? Because I'm trying to make notes and I kind of got lost in the weeds somewhere. Is that what you anticipate the debt service minus the assets will be?
So if you bear with me a second, I'll tell you how that's arrived at. In our report on page 177, actually it goes back to It's on page 176. The total allocable debt and future capital needs, we estimated to be 2.6 million. And we also calculated the debt 3 different ways. We presented in the projected tax rate is the most conservative approach. That was using the relative assessed value. We also provided 2 other approaches that also have merit, which would result in lower debt service, lower debt payment. The second method is based on a per capita calculation method, and the third is based upon relative portion of geographic area, which produces an even lower number. So that wasn't up to us to decide. The only decision we made is we included the more conservative number in the report.
I guess my confusion comes from the fact that after this ordinance is passed, then we have the committee of 3 and 3, and they will work on this number. So why do they have to do that when you've already come up with a number?
No.
No.
Okay, once again, if I may, because that number, what that number is not a known quantity. As I said, they've gone through 3 different scenarios on how that number could be calculated. Basically, Berkeley Township has taken on over the years, a certain amount of debt, just like we bond, they bond. And some portion of that bonding is attributable to South Seaside Park. There are numerous ways to calculate that would be. These are 3. Another, would be to say, well, how much of that work was done here, which may be difficult to parse out. So the reason that they can't, they've come up with different numbers, but they're based on different methodologies. When I was saying about this, there being some incentive for Berkeley Township and Seaside Park to come to an agreement because of the control factor, as opposed to having, unidentified people appointed by the court, is part of that is if we can't come to an agreement, either based on an agreement on what the methodology should be, or old-fashioned horse trading, because as I said, there are other factors, and there are going to be things that are important to them, things that are important to Seaside Park, that we're going to have to try and convince these, the 3 court-appointed people as to what the correct methodology would be. So I think that the 2.6 represents a conservative way to do it. Now, Berkeley Township may have an even more conservative way that they're going to try and do it, but that was the most conservative approach. And in order to not be over-promising in terms of being able to get that number lower, the most conservative number was dealt with for the report, but that is not an established number.
No, that much I get. So Berkeley could say, we're going to establish debt service by some percent of assessed value, and Seaside Park might say, well, we want to do it based on a per capita thing, and that's what has to be worked out. Is that correct?
Right, and then, and we talk about negotiations, and, there is just, in having done a lot of negotiations of different kinds over the years, ultimately, I think, and everybody agrees in this room, it comes down to the number.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's sort of like, well, if you do it on this calculation and your number is, 6, and I do on this calculation, my number is 2, well, we may not ever agree on what the methodology should be, but maybe we can both agree on 4.
Okay, thank you.
Perhaps, I don't know if our attorney and/or the consultant as well could address the point, because I don't want the record to reflect something that could lead to a misunderstanding. A question was asked as to the consultants group, how many such annexation reports have you ever done? A relevant inquiry would be, how many similar relevant annexation reports have ever been done in the state of New Jersey? I say that because, and it's relevant to a prior comment as well, the statute back in 1979, 1980, when this issue arose, hearings took place, and a decision was made, that statute has been modified, changed, and then amended at least 3 times. So 1982 is when the statute was first changed, and it's an entirely different procedure that is now in place. Fast forward, have any towns, especially of this magnitude or any portions of towns or land, ever been subject to an annexation study? So a good lawyer, you ask a question, you know the answer, but I'll ask our attorney perhaps could address that. And then even of greater relevance, so we were faced with a situation looking at the greater experienced groups, consulting groups out there. Are there any that have been in the forefront with some of their experts in a recent similar, but by no means equal situation that occurred with Princeton Township, Princeton Borough? The answer is yes. Seated at this table, there are. Are there any groups out there that have handled joint services agreements, mergers of certain services between municipalities? Who was one of the leading consulting groups in that field? And again, we have some of the experts, and I feel free to have them address whether it's the Princeton Borough situation, Princeton Township, others, but you can all see there is nothing like this that has occurred in the cases, and the Supreme Court has addressed it, and that's why we have on our website the case. The New Jersey Supreme Court has ruled on this, and they too had to wrestle with a statute that some have referred to as having some gaps in the procedures, and some of the last comments and questions really zero in on one of those gaps that were left for applying statutory interpretation, and when that fails the rule of reason, that is something that we've wrestled with at length. But perhaps our attorney could ask if anyone is aware of any study that's similar at all
so
that's occurred.
in terms of the studies, and obviously annexation is something that comes up very seldom. It's not that it has never happened before. And in this area, I think there was a portion of Tom's River that joined in with Lavalette. What the level of studies that were done in those cases, and particularly in this case, or in our situation, by the sort of what I'll call the receiving municipality. So the mayor had referred to the gaps in the statute, and I know a lot of people in this room, and I feel like I'm repeating myself, so I ask you to bear with me. But the statute has a procedure in place, and a fairly detailed procedure for the, we'll call the potentially sending municipality. So obviously the people in South Seaside Park, they had a burden to make before the planning board and then out through the courts, and they got reports in that regard. And Berkeley Township got reports on the same thing. But to be in our position, right? So Lavalette, in the Toms River Lavalette case, Toms River probably did reports, and the Westmont Shores, I think it was, that was trying to join up with Lavalette, they did it. What Lavalette did to consider it, I don't know, and one of the reasons for maybe that may be a question of scale, right? So in a lot of the times where there's an annexation, it's a relatively small area. In this case, South Seaside Park is a relatively small area of Berkeley Township, though Berkeley Township obviously did a lot of work to try and see what those impacts would be. But it's a really large portion relative to Seaside Park. So we're not in the same position as a lot of towns. So there certainly have been planning reports that have been done, that would have to be done, and there have been some financial impact reports. This kind of large-scale report to try and consider, I mean, you're never going to catch all aspects, we all know that, but to try and really look at the foreseeable impacts in terms of municipal operations, as well as planning the financial aspects, is extremely rare, particularly for the receiving municipality. So, obviously we'd always want for everyone to be pleased and to feel confident, but simply the level of experience and the kinds of reports that government strategies have done are exactly the kinds of things that we needed them to look at.
Just to add to that, Government Strategies Group for the past 20 years have been looking at operational studies and management studies, and financial analysis for municipalities and counties throughout the state of New Jersey. To everyone's point, this type of annexation is just so rare. I don't think there's another firm that's active in New Jersey that can say they have done one like this.
My question was not meant in any way, shape, or form to be a criticism. I was just
Understood.
asking for point of information.
Of course, just wanting to clarify that I don't think there's another firm in New Jersey that could say that they've done something similar. That's active.
Yes, any other comments? Two? Yes?
Okay. Kathy Fulcomer, 356 Roberts Avenue, Seaside Park by the post office, South Seaside Park by our local vernacular down here, and Berkeley by law. And I hope that the next time I ever come to this mic, I can just say Seaside Park, and it covers all of that. Yeah. And I wasn't going to say, I was going to speak about the zoning, and I will in a minute. Because I'm not addressing anything financial. I'll leave that to the experts that we have, that you guys have hired. And 50 years ago, my husband and I also were involved in this. So if nothing else, Jim and Kathy Fulcomer are persistent, so is Don Whiteman, and we are consistent, and we just keep right on going. So about the zoning aspect of it, I mentioned that last time, and I want to really emphasize that. My husband was the chairman of the zoning board of adjustment in Berkeley a while ago, number of years ago. And what he would find is that, and maybe, I think all your council people understand this, maybe some of the citizens might not be that familiar with it. When a place is zoned, let's say it's zoned for single-family homes, and a company wants to come in and build a multiple family, different levels, apartments, whatever it is. If it's not in agreement with the present zoning ordinance, you have to get a variance. And the variance, the person makes an application, the company, whoever wants to build the building, whatever it is, comes before the Board of Adjustment and applies. Now, my point is, you folks have this unique opportunity, and it may not happen again, where you can control the citizenry, the type of homes, and keep the quality of life that we all love about Seaside Park, South Seaside Park, whatever you want to call it. You want to keep that. You have an opportunity with you and Seaside Park to control the zoning right next to you. You can't control Seaside Heights, but okay, that's that. But we in South Seaside Park, we have to come through Seaside Park to get off the island. So if you want to control the type of housing, the people, well, not necessarily the people, but the type of housing and the kind of either homeowners, renters, whoever is here, you would control all the zoning, but not just the zoning, you would control any of the variances, whether you want to accept the variance or whether you do not. Because right now, even our own councilman down there, Jimmy Burns, first ward councilman, he doesn't live here, he lives over there. All the council people in Berkeley live over there. And the zoning board lives over there. So you're in a situation over there, meaning Berkeley over there. So you're in a situation where this is a one-time opportunity, although you could have had it 50 years ago, or 48 if you want to, whatever the exact year was, I don't remember. But you have an opportunity to make that kind of decision. And it's a very, very important decision. Yes, finances are on the top of everybody's mind, but like I said, I'm not the expert on that. But you have this unique opportunity to make all of Seaside Park and South Seaside Park the delightful, peaceful, wonderful little community that we will share. Thank you.
Thank you. Shirley?
Shirley Cresswell, 700 North Bayview Avenue, Seaside Park. I just need to clarify a couple of things. Central Regional, we were told would be going up 62%. Is that still the correct figure? That's what it said in the originally, and we were told that when we last time, 62%. Did that change?
The number's the same, I don't remember 60%.
Yeah, we were told 62%.
I know that the difference in tax,
So it's not quite that high.
it's.
Goes. Okay, I'm going to assume that.
62?
Is it?
62.
It will increase by 62%. Okay, and then the 40 to 50% decrease in our taxes, that's not really true?
No, that's what I was addressed.
That was the.
That there was an error in the
Oh,
calculation. Yes.
Okay, it's like telling a kid he's getting a bike and you give him a pump. Thank you.
Any other comments? We have those online. Yes. Joan?
Joanne Penn, 208 Cape Court, Seaside Park. A lot of the discussion over the past few weeks, months, has been about the taxes, and I am asking the council, when you consider your vote, to not forget about the humanistic part of this decision. The citizens of South Seaside Park have been urging us to go forward with this for a long time. Not only urging, fighting, practically begging for us to bring them in as a part of Seaside Park. And I think the humanistic part of it is so important to those 500 plus citizens that are there, that they want so much to be a part of us. And I realize the taxes are important. I realize the zoning is important. But when we listen to the hearts of the people in South Seaside Park, I think we really have to think hard about why they want this and what we can do for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments in the audience? If not, we'll go on to anyone participating virtually. If so, if you could have a comment, raise your hand appropriately and give your name and address into the record.
Hi, this is Dave Arbach, 20 14th Avenue, Seaside Park, New Jersey.
Yes, sir.
First of all, sorry about that. I've sent quite a bit of emails, so I'm glad that's all going to stop now, I hope. But I do believe mayor and council and government service group, you need to amend the original study. The original study is incorrect. The addendum is meant to be additional information, but the initial study still set off a bunch of information about 40 to 50% tax cuts, which is incorrect. And that study needs to be amended. And by the way, in general, as I believe it was Ken said, I mean, the study is very thorough. There's a lot of information, but it's completely incorrect on the tax impact, which drove a host of social media comments and concerns about the residents that I think requires that it be amended, not addended. That's my first comment. My second comment is I do want to thank Bill Kraft, Tina Condos, who did reply to my emails. I wouldn't say necessarily happy with responses, but at least I got an appreciation for them reading my email and understanding my concerns, because although there's a lot of experts on the government services group, I think I outlined exactly what's in the addendum on Sunday night. I happen to be an experienced financial guy and consulting guy. This isn't like rocket science to go through this, and it's a shame that there was a mistake made. I'm glad, Ken, you approached it and raised it up front, but the fact of the matter is it's wrong, needs to be amended, and needs to be changed. And again, I want to thank Gina and Bill for just kind of like, saying, thank you for writing your comments. That's all I have to say on that. And the last point I want to make is, I don't believe that this, we keep on saying that this is the most conservative view of this case. First of all, it's primarily a one-year view of what's going to happen. Primarily. I mean, there are 5-year estimates on, by the way, beach badge sales. I appreciate that. I could do that on the back of my hand. There are some personnel discussions that are in there as well. But I don't think this in any way, shape, or form represents the most conservative view. And I'm particularly concerned about potential litigation that's going to arise over time about things like zoning, master plans, and that kind of thing, which we all know are the real expensive kind of litigation expenses. And they're the things that are going to fundamentally change the nature of what Seaside Park is all about. I'm not necessarily for or against this. I have lots of friends at South Seaside Park. I just think there are a host of issues here that, based on the report and based on the way people are saying things, are not representative of reality. And all I want to suggest is, let's think about a pause. 2 weeks ago, Sharon got up and led with 40% tax decrease. That's not happening. So how we could go from March 5th to now and have an ordinance being tabled for the first time when there were material and misleading statements in a report that neither the governing body nor the consulting group could answer. And by the way, I run big consulting businesses, far bigger than anyone in this room's run. You need to understand that coming in. If you're going to lead with that, you need to make sure it's correct. And I understand there was a mistake. I'm glad everybody fessed up to it. But let's just pump the brakes for a moment here. Why are we issuing an ordinance today when there are people in the town that don't fully understand this? I do thank I guess the mayor and governing body and government service group for issuing addendum. That clearly addressed one of my issues that I had raised at the March 5th meeting. I thank you very much for that, because that kind of cleared a lot of the confusion. But the other thing I did request in emails to everybody was, this is not a one-year decision. We put our trust in this governing body to take a look at what this is going to look like over, again, what I believe a 5-year period is reasonable to assume. I can do the math on 1 year, that's easy. But 5 years, what is this going to look like? And I believe that the governing body needs to provide us with their best guess. I'm not asking for a mathematical exercise. When I've run businesses, sometimes I have to pop a number out of my you-know-what to get to the answer. But at least I put it on record that this is what I think is going to happen. And at the end of the day, I want to make sure that we're providing the most accurate, reasonable assessment of what this is going to look like, not only from the tax base, but a master plan point of view and a zoning point. And again, by the way, I just want to say one more time, I appreciate all of your service in putting up with at least the folks that I assume you all read my emails. I do thank, again, certain members for reading them. But I do think this is a very, very complicated issue. I know you've all spent your time on it. I just think we're rushing into it by introducing the first reading of an ordinance tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments from those participating virtually?
No, it doesn't appear so, Mayor.
No one else? Anyone else with comments? Yes, Jerry?
Jay Delaney, 1710 North Bayview Avenue, Seaside Park. Hearing the comments from the previous speaker, he raises several points. And one particular, first let me address the amendment to the report. Certainly I know some of the members of the team from government strategies that have participated in this exercise. But the reality is that the well of public information and perception has been poisoned by what occurred at the last meeting. I walked out of here with an understanding that the projected tax increase was in the range of 40 to 50%. That information has been repeated in publications, public media, and to the previous speaker's comments regarding social media commentary pro and con. An error of that magnitude is inexcusable. I would encourage the governing body to move slowly, very slowly, on the whole matter, review the numbers, perhaps have an independent review of the information that's been gathered. As I referenced at the last meeting, again, this is an important consideration, and to your legal counsel's observation, that this is of a magnitude that is significant. Whether it's done on the basis of population, where you're looking at a roughly 50% increase in the population of the community, which for those of us that live here, we realize that that's only a small portion of really the community. Referencing the point earlier tonight that frankly, the residents of South Seaside Park are part of the community. There is no distinction between, there may be a municipal legal boundary, but Seaside Park residents, South Seaside Park residents, summer visitors, summer residents, frankly, with probably very few exceptions, even understand that there's a legal distinction between South Seaside Park and Seaside Park. The residents of the Barrier Island are a community, regardless of who they pay their taxes to. At the end of the day, this is frankly little more than tax savings shopping. Admittedly, there will be advantages to Seaside Park. I'm not sure that they're reflected in the report that you've all seen and are now considering. Like the previous commenter, I'm going to suggest that introducing an ordinance at this time is inappropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other comments? Yes, sir, Rob.
Bobby Ring, 119 Surf Drive, South Seaside Park. Just in response to Jay's comments, the tax shopping is not a valid reason for any community to de-annex from another. It would be immediately rejected by a court that saw that happening. 3 courts unanimously, including the state Supreme Court, ruled that the petitioners had met all 3 prongs necessary to prove that they deserve the right to de-annex from Berkeley Township. I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Yes, Alex?
Alex Condos, 44 7th Avenue. Jay Delaney, I want to say publicly, thank you very much. Your words were outstanding, and my sentiments exactly.
Any other comments? Hearing none, I would close anything further from the consultant group or our attorneys or anything at this juncture. Well, we thank you for coming, and we'll close the public portion at this time and move on with the balance of the agenda. Yeah, sure. You're all certainly free to leave, and we thank you for coming down.
I assume that doesn't apply to me? No?
You're not smart.
I will shift out until
If you want to sit at the dais, there's a spot at the end of the microphone.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Do Do we have in the audience Sloan Boyce? Is she, I don't see her because I've been to one of the ceremonies with Councilmember Condos and Councilmember Connor. We were happy to attend the 30th anniversary of the library. And I know she had a difficult time on Thursday, so I'll hold that off to the regular meeting on the proclamation for the library. The first other item on the agenda is discussion of Discover Card merchant class action settlement. I don't know if we could, I think the attorneys will agree, probably, who gets the lion's share of these kinds of class actions?
For the class action.
What profession are you in? They are part of the legal system, so I don't know if you want, I know Jerry had forwarded it to the clerk and everyone, Steve, we looked at it.
Can't hurt to join in.
Yeah, I mean,
Doesn't cost you anything.
You may get a couple of bucks down the road.
you mean it may end up, at some point, some money might flow to the town, but I don't know that it's a windfall. But anyone have a problem with going ahead and joining that, having?
No, there's no harm.
The next item, this has been on the agenda on several past occasions. It's discussion of which buildings might be listed for free service pursuant to Section 10 of the Cable Franchise Renewal Ordinance 22601. And the town had asked that all the municipal buildings be included for free cable service, and we'd also asked for free internet service. And the attorney for the cable company objected, and the verbiage that we had included in the original suggested ordinance. And I know everyone's discussed, we thought at the very least each and every municipal building should have free cable, and that would include the community center, this building, the police station, the borough hall, and even Public Works, lifeguard headquarters, all should be included. I know speculation why they balk at the internet aspect of this, but I don't know, maybe we have the benefit of a lot of expertise too of our attorneys here. I don't know if either of you have some background on why they're balking at the internet portion.
I think, Mayor, they didn't like the language that said, as we designate, and Mr. Quinn specifically asked, which buildings do you want? In other words, he didn't want an open-ended, whatever building you decide, he wants to know what buildings do you want? So I think the answer is, let's tell him the buildings we want, and that's the answer to his question.
So list them out individually.
Yes, put that in the ordinance. What about the internet aspect?
Yeah, that's the aspect, as you know, I have represented a number of towns and done this particular dance before, and it is always the issue of the internet. I'm not surprised to hear Mr. Zabarski say that they're looking for identification regarding free cable of specific buildings. I certainly would, think you may want to start out with a large number of those. It is the internet they do not provide. I've had that same argument and discussion in many towns, and they do not provide the internet service. What the rationale for that is and why it's so difficult for them, I could not tell you, but I know that something that becomes an issue is that they feel to a large extent what they do for one, they will have to do for all.
Well, the other thing, if I could add, just from my background in, television and media, is once you have internet, you can stream whatever you want. You don't even need the cable.
Right.
So it's not in their best interest necessarily to give you internet if you can then use any other over-the-top service. I'm assuming that's why they probably don't want to do it. So you don't need their cable.
Don't they provide one free internet?
It said one. Yeah,
So we should designate the building we want for the one free internet and cable, and tell them all the other buildings we want cable.
Right.
Free cable service.
I don't know if we have it in multiple today though, right?
Currently, we have free cable in the police station and public works, and we have free internet in the municipal building in Borough Hall.
So the community center has cable there, right?
What's that?
The community center has cable
Does not have
there?
cable, we stream.
Oh, we stream, okay.
See?
Okay, so yeah. We're getting something in there, yeah. Okay.
So procedurally now, we had introduced and actually passed an
They
ordinance.
didn't like the language.
I know,
But
so
they're
we-
just looking for, what buildings do you want the cable in? And you get one free internet. That's all they want, a response back.
So at present, do we have a free internet?
We do in Borough Hall.
So that would continue?
Stay there, yeah.
I
And-
thought that was part of a different set, like not part of the cable franchise. I think that was part of the Altice setup.
Altice, yeah, that's, speaking of class action suits where we prevailed, one of the few towns that had the courage to sue Altice, so that's something we recovered.
So ask for a
So
different.
you're correct, that's a different corporate entity, so. So the ordinance could be or should be amended in terms of designating
I
these
would answer his
buildings?
question first and see if it's necessary to amend the ordinance. It may not be.
All right, then we'll
So
put that. in.
designate a building with free internet and cable and the other buildings with cable. Just have to send him that answer. That was the question he asked.
Yeah, and designate those buildings.
And then if he thinks, if he wants, if we need to amend the ordinance, if they insist on that, then we can amend the ordinance.
Everybody okay with that?
Sounds good.
All right.
Yeah.
The third item is discussion of a proposal dated March 11th, 2026 from Remington Vernick Engineers for construction management inspection of the 14th Avenue Stormwater Pump Station. That's listed for consideration in Resolution 226-157 at this evening's regular meeting. Any background comments?
Mayor, this is for the management, before we discuss this for the engineering. This is actually to move forward and have the management for the inspections and that portion of the project. This is the next phase.
Okay. Anything else? That's on the regular meeting?
Yeah.
And the second, next item E is discussion of a proposal dated March 11th, 2026 from Remington Vernick Engineers for additional work for the procurement of stormwater management equipment. It's listed for consideration Resolution 226-158 at the regular meeting. And anything further from Marty, your perspective, or Karen, any other background?
Yes, Mayor, this came before us before, but we're going to rebid because I believe last time we bid it in entirety for all pieces of equipment that we were looking for, including the generator. Now this is going out to bid, if I correct Steve, we're split up all the components separately.
Correct.
So that too is on for action later at the regular meeting. Anything else from council at this juncture? In terms of, we had a proclamation and what we'll do in the absence of the Upper Shores librarian. This, I can read it into the record and we will present it to them at the first upcoming moment. It's a proclamation from the Borough of Seaside Park proclaiming National Library Week. It's actually in April. It's April 19th to 25th. And the resolution bears repeating as to the importance, of course, of libraries. And we're fortunate enough to have a very active and highly acclaimed, in fact, in the whole state, Ocean County Library System, and the Upper Shores is one example of that. Whereas libraries spark creativity, fuel imagination, inspire lifelong learning, offering a space where individuals of all ages can find joy through exploration and discovery, and whereas libraries serve as vibrant community hubs, connecting people with knowledge, technology, and resources while fostering civic engagement, critical thinking, and cultural enrichment, and whereas libraries provide free and equitable access to books, digital tools, and innovative programming, ensuring that all individuals, regardless of background, have the support they need to learn, connect, and thrive. And whereas libraries partner with schools, businesses, and organizations to maximize resources, increase efficiency, and expand access to essential services, strengthening the entire community. And whereas libraries empower job seekers and entrepreneurs and lifelong learners by providing access to resources, training, and opportunities that support career growth and economic success. And whereas libraries nurture young minds through story times, STEM programs, and literacy initiatives, fostering curiosity and a love of learning that lasts a lifetime. And whereas libraries protect the right to read, think, and explore without censorship, standing as champions of intellectual freedom and free expression. And whereas dedicated librarians, library workers provide welcoming spaces that inspire discovery, collaboration, and creativity for all. And whereas libraries, librarians, and library workers across the country are joining together to celebrate National Library Week under the theme, Find Your Joy. And now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor, Johnny Peterson Jr., the Council of Seaside Park, on behalf of all our citizens, hereby proclaim April 19th to 25th, 2026 as National Library Week. And during this week, and in fact every week, we encourage all our residents to visit their library, explore its resources, celebrate all the ways that libraries help our community indeed find joy. And that is the resolution that we will present an upcoming opportunity with the library folks. That concludes the work session agenda. Anyone on the council have anything additional for work session? If not, we'll go into the audience. If anyone has any comments on any of the work session items, if they could give their name and address into the record. Yes, Tom?
Microphone this time. Tom Joseph, 704 South Bayview Avenue. On the stormwater pump station, have they put together, or are they putting together a bid package for the construction itself? I mean, this is construction management and inspection, but what about the bid package to go out and get bids to do the job itself? Did that go out and I missed it, or has that not come out yet?
I'll turn it over to the Berman.
So we've already paid for those services in engineering, we paid for design, permitting, and bid specs, but the bid specs are not out yet. So this is the second phase of that project. When we get to construction, this will cover the construction management and oversight.
So do we know when we're going to go out for bids on the project itself?
Not off the top of my head, but I'll follow up with you.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments on work session items? Hearing none, I would close the public portion, and unless anyone else from council, entertain a motion to adjourn the work session, take a brief moment, and then we will move into the regular meeting.
Make the motion.
Motion by Councilmember Kraft, second by Councilmember Toth. Roll call.
Councilmember Kraft?
Yes.
Councilmember Toth?
Yes.
Councilmember Condos?
Yes.
Councilmember Connor?
Yes.
Councilmember Rotunda?
Yes.
Council President Wilk?
Yes.
Motion approved.